Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Karine Vanasse, a tremendously talented actor you may have seen in Léa Poule's Emporte-Moi, Guy Maddin's The Forbidden Room, or Denis Villeneuve's Polytechnique, which she also developed and produced. She also appeared with Receive Sutherland in two very different movies, the romantic drama I'm Yours and the World War I thriller Trench 11. She won 2 Canadian Screen Awards for her performance as Lise Delorme in the CTV drama Cardinal, and she voices a fairly crucial role in the animated feature Felix and the Treasure of Morgaa, newly arrived on digital and on demand today. She's the best, is what I'm saying, and I'm delighted to have her on the podcast. Karine picked Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, Eliza Hittman's quiet, observant, and almost unbearably powerful 2020 drama about a pregnant teenager named Autumn who travels from small-town Pennsylvania to New York City to get an abortion, accompanied by her cousin Skylar. Autumn is played by Sydney Flanagan, Skylar is played by Talia Ryder, and they're both incredibly effective. So is the movie, which is one of the best American films of recent years, and one that was so modest and unflashy it went right under the radar of audiences and awards bodies last year. But Karine saw it, and she wanted to talk about it. Like I said, she's the best. This is Someone Else's Movie.
You know, there's so many movies out there that people are talking about, and you know, these days it's so easy to think that, you know, once you make a film, if it ends up being on Netflix, you know, everybody will see it because it's going to be available to everybody. Yeah, but it can get lost quite easily as well. And Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is a movie that a friend of mine recommended to me I think it was like maybe 2 months ago. And it's the kind of little gem that I really hope everybody would get their hands on. It's really, it moved me. It felt more than relevant. It felt very special, although, you know, made with just a very, very low budget, but great performances. And I just want to make sure that it gets mentioned as much as it can, because it's you can feel the impulse of just, I want to tell that story. Okay, we don't have a lot of money, but let's, you know, make it anyway. Let's tell that story. And there's a lot of heart and passion. And, you know, just for the last scene, the last moments of the film, I love when a movie does that. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect all the way through, but there needs to be a moment that, you know, just for me, at least as a viewer, that's what I love. And those final moments of that film, they will stay with me for years and years and years. And when talking about the film, I will reference that specific moment. And it was very powerful storytelling wise. I think that it was really well built up. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that electricity that you feel when a movie is about to hit its perfect ending the first time you see it, when it's just like, oh, please let this be the last shot. This, don't go any further. This is exactly where you've been bringing the whole story. This is where we've been going. I saw it, I don't want to say alone, but there was maybe 2 other people in the theater with me because we screened it. We played it at the TIFF Secret Movie Club. Yeah. It was the last one last year that we did just before our lockdown. I knew Eliza Hittman's work. I really loved Beach Rats and
I didn't know her work.
Oh, wow. Well, she's made, I'm going to get this wrong. I think there are only 2 other features before this. It Felt Like Love and Beach Rats. And they're all about, as well as Never, Rarely, they're all about teenagers and young people figuring out who they are and what they want. And this is the one that applies it to a practical thing. It Felt Like Love and Beach Rats are both about protagonists who, they want relationships. They don't exactly go about it very well. Beach Rats is about a closeted gay guy in his early 20s who's at home with his dying father, and he's on the Jersey Shore, and he can't act on his homosexuality, but he does. And it's just about the pain of denying what he wants and not being able to act on his desires. And of course, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is about a young woman who knows exactly what she wants, and it's about the impediments and the way that the world around her won't let her get it, which is equally powerful in a completely different way. And so watching this film, in this quiet, in the, like, I think it was in TIFF Cinema 5 in the Lightbox, the littlest room, very intimate, very small, very suffocating almost in certain points in the film. It was great because, oh, this is everything this artist does. This is all of her strengths directed in something that's now political as well as personal, deeply felt. And yeah, when you hit that ending, it's like, oh Christ, this is art. She knew this all along.
But when you say, yeah, and I think when you say that, yes, obviously it was political, but also deeply felt. And I feel like it's easy to think that these two don't go together. That when you're doing something, quite political, you'll slowly lose that connection with deeper feelings. And this movie never lost that. Yeah.
Oh no, I agree. She makes it so touching and so simple. The visual language of just the way that people hold hands, that throughout the film, that there's this constant sense of touch and reinforcement. We talked about it in the Q&A. She and the two leads, Sidney Flanigan and Talia Ryder, were in Berlin, and so I think they were either on their way to the screening or they had just come back from it, and all three of them were jet lagged and exhausted, and it was like the best time to talk about this movie because it is coming from such a raw, I mean, it's a polished professional film, but it is so purely emotional and so clenched and terrified. And you watch it and you think, how is Sidney Flanigan not making 6 movies a year? Where has she been? And it turns out that she was a singer. She actually is a musician who Hittman discovered at a picnic.
Oh, that I didn't know. Oh
yeah. Yeah. She was shooting a documentary for someone, and Flanagan was just there playing a song in Buffalo, I want to say.
Wow. But it's I don't know, how many days of shooting did they have? Because it really feels like it was shot like,
yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks. Okay.
She said it was a very compressed schedule. They didn't have a lot of money and they didn't have a lot of time. And the road movie aspect was a complication because they had to keep figuring out how to set up the next thing while they were shooting the thing they were currently shooting. Yeah.
Because you can feel you feel the night, the exhaustion of the night, and yeah. And it's hard sometimes to keep that for the entire length of the movie, and I never felt a disconnection to them. Yeah. Yeah.
There is a documentary feel, isn't there? I mean, it's sort of quietly set in 2003 or something, which I didn't even notice the first time through.
Me neither. Yeah.
But the VHS tape is there, and there are all these little cues.
Okay. I didn't. Yeah.
Apparently. But the longer you spend with it, though, that doesn't make sense. I think doesn't somebody have a cell phone? Or maybe I just assume that because they don't have a lot of money, they just have older model phones.
What was the impact in the States? Do you know if it resonated?
It opened just as the pandemic hit, so all the coverage was sort of truncated. I know that it was not as aggressively opposed as I expected it would be, just for the subject matter, because you assume that they're going to stamp down on anything that vaguely, especially in the Trump, like in a Trump election year. I thought it was going to be a much bigger deal, but I think just because it was released by Focus in a small pattern, it sort of got rolled over. I mean, it was actually supposed to open in Toronto the weekend everything shut down, or the day after, because it never made it. We had to pull our review.
Oh, you had to pull it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it didn't show up for another 3 weeks. So we had to.
Because, I'm asking about the States, but at the same time, it is still relevant in Canada to talk about it too. And it's so close to the emotional journey of what this girl has to go through. And there's, I don't know, I feel like sometimes this specific subject, we get in our head a lot, it's about the moral aspect of it all, but the internal journey that it represents for women, especially young women. It's such a big decision. And when we talk about abortion and women's group, they often say that regardless of a woman who wants to get an abortion will get it anyway, if it's legal or not, if she might die or not, if she feels that it's not the right moment for her to have a child, she will do it anyway. And you see that in the film. I feel like that feeling of there's no other solution really it will have to be that, yeah.
Yeah, Autumn knows what it's not what she wants, it's what she needs.
What she needs to do. Like, it's just, yeah. But, and the difficulty and, it's, but she's not detached, going through it. It's not, okay, I know what needs to be done and I'm doing it anyway, but it's not how you are going through that kind of emotional journey. But, no, I think it's a very powerful film, and I really hope, sometimes it's easy to think about those subjects, and as we were saying, focus on the States and say, well, it's still such a big issue there, but it's easy to forget that it is still an issue here as well, and it won't take a lot for it to become a bigger issue if we're not informed, and if the younger generation is not really informed, and if we don't talk about it. It's such a secretive. I feel like even, women, it's the kind of film that you really feel like it could open discussions. Especially now, there's so much happening internationally, on that specific subject. And it's, I know a few young women were like, why is it's easy to forget why it's such a big deal for, women in Brazil, in Argentina, in Poland, to be so excited about, and not excited, but to be so, I don't know, all these demonstrations and everything. So it's, it's an important right. And anyway, so I was really moved by the film, and I think it's great to entertain, but when you can produce something like that can resonate deeply especially with a younger audience, I think it's very powerful. I admire that a lot.
Yeah. I would say, like, Hittman has the ability to focus on. Yeah, there's an urgent. I was going to say there's an urgency, but that's not really it. But by making it about Autumn's journey. I mean, I hate using the word journey because it's so overused, but this is literally a physical travel, is in addition to all the emotional stuff she goes through. And so by concentrating on that, by making it a process film, the next step in how every step brings her slightly closer to New York, but also works against her emotional state because she's being worn down and physically just jumping through all of these hoops, emotionally as well as logistically. Like, she and Skylar have, what is it, $200? That's enough to get tickets into the city, but they don't have the money to come home because it's really just about getting there. All of that plays as the sort of sedate schematic. I don't even know how I'm trying to figure out how to frame it properly. It's all about finding the next step. It's all about making the next connection. And depending on the kindness of strangers, literally, again, that happens over and over again, people help Autumn who she's not expecting to be helped by. The nurses, the technicians, everybody there, they're really apologetic when they can't take her right away because she didn't know that she couldn't go in right away. All these things that she just assumes will happen because on some level she's a kid and she just still figures the adults are going to take care of her. Like, that's why that scene in the fake abortion clinic is so gutting to me, because she is trusting everyone to help her, and that place exists only to prey on her. And it was so clear to me immediately that the information isn't quite right. She's being told she's further along than she is based on the sonogram that we see. And it just, you feel so sick so quickly about the world that this poor kid has to navigate.
But there's you feel that they're, Autumn and Skylar, that's her name, right? Being a prey is felt through the entire film. You can't blame them for trusting. You can't blame Autumn for trusting it. I mean, that's an amazing, it's difficult to trust. And when you do, and that other person is trying to manipulate you, and it's terrible, but you will always have, but it's just I don't know. It's, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. I had forgotten about that scene at the clinic before she leaves for New York. And it is terrible. Yeah. And from that moment, you understand that she will have to stay so focused on herself. She will always have to come back to herself and make sure that that person is really there for her. and that intuition that needs to be super alive, because the risk of not being led in the right direction is there. And it hurt so bad when you see Skylar having that feeling of this, I'm going to be used, but I have to go in that direction anyway, because I need that help, which is not really help, but I need anyway. It's so sad. It's so sad because it is reality. And seeing her having to just swallow it because there's no other option than being used. I don't know. It's all these little subtle moments, about what it means to be a woman in this world sometimes, a young woman, but a woman in general. Once again, it was very subtle, but I think it was I don't know. How did you feel as a man watching that?
Indicted, I would say. I mean, it's absolutely structural sexism that is powering the conflicts. It's, you just know on some level that the laws in Pennsylvania were legislated by old white guys, by Republicans, trying to make a statement and get some votes from conservatives. It felt honest in a really uncomfortable way, in that we are aware.
Honest in a very uncomfortable way. That's beautifully said. Yes.
Unfortunately. But I never doubted for a second that everything in this film is likely to have happened over and over and over again. Nothing felt fictionalized. Nothing felt dramatized, even though we're watching a fictional story. It's like what Margaret Atwood said about The Handmaid's Tale. It's not science fiction. Everything in this book has happened somewhere. Yeah. And what this was...
it doesn't need to be over dramatized.
Exactly.
To be dramatic.
Yeah. Just presenting it documentary style really works, because all we do is look at the faces and look at the things that aren't being said and the gestures that are being made subtly, the way that Hittman opens the film with Autumn singing that song, the cover of the Exciters. And I know that song. It doesn't sound like that. And what Flanagan does in her performance is tell us everything about the movie we're about to see, everything about who this person is, to the point where the audience at the Q&A at TIFF was kind of angry that Hittman didn't tell us who the father is. Like, it's pretty clear to me.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted an answer.
Yeah, but I love that she doesn't give that answer.
Yeah, because it's none of our business.
No. Exactly.
Right? That's not what this is about.
And it doesn't matter for what she's about to do. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we get lost in that kind of details to be able to judge if we agree with the decision or not. But it doesn't matter.
I think the audience definitely wanted to know how to feel. Or not the audience, some people in the audience, definitely the person who asked the question and the other person who clapped. But that's not what this movie is about. It's not about the consequences of sex. It's about the reality of safety for Autumn and for Skylar, because they're both on their own in so many ways. Like Skylar, they both work at a job where they are constantly harassed. It's implied that Skylar is using the boss right back because he's already used her. Yeah. And all of this stuff is unsaid because this is the kind of, that's what I meant about documentary style, I suppose, that there is no big speech. The closest we come to any kind of exposition is the questionnaire. And that is like that incredible performance from Flanagan, who, again, like, it's revelatory. Who is this person? Put her in everything. Yes. Because the way she handles that, I mean, I saw that. I think I might have actually been, I was definitely the only man. There were 3 people in the theater. I was the only guy in the theater. And at that first screening, and it's just like, you don't even want to breathe because you don't want to break the movie's spell. But that moment, that shot of Sidney Flanagan answering those questions without looking at anybody, without, just feeling as she gets tighter and more. Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of, I don't know. It's, it hasn't been recognized that much, that performance, right?
No nominations at all. Nothing.
No nominations at all. It's always surprising somehow what gets lost. But I really found it interesting that, Skylar and Autumn could have easily been only one character, but the fact that they were two didn't take away anything from Autumn. And I think on the contrary, the fact it would have been maybe too much if everything had happened to her, like to Autumn. And it made it, okay, so it's what she's going through. How can I put it together? I think it made it even more real and honest, the fact that she was not the only one receiving all these, not attacks, but I don't know, being preyed on, from so many angles. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been a lot for only one character to receive it all. And at the same time, the fact that we saw, two young women going through that, and seeing and knowing exactly what the other person is going through, and sometimes not even being able to talk about it directly.
Yeah.
But because there's, I don't know, there's a lot of the shame of it, even amongst, that scene, with Théodore Pellerin, when Skylar, when they're kissing and, Autumn is just coming and they're just, as you said, touching hands. But you really get the feeling that they will probably never talk about it.
Yeah, it's just a thing that happened, right? It's a shared experience. Yeah. Hopefully they won't even process it as traumatic. They'll just,
No.
The thing that, and I think Hittman mentioned this specifically in the conversation. She's like, it's a sharing of strength. They pass it back and forth to each other when they need it. And Skylar is there in support of Autumn. She really doesn't have to be there. You're right. That structurally, she could lift right out, but she's also the one who seems to be better positioned to navigate the world. She's more aware of how she's perceived in it. And Autumn just sort of boxes herself away.
You're right.
And this is gradually, like, you see how they gain strength from each other, but also how they don't have any without each other. Like they really do need that. It's a symbiotic enabling that happens. They're together through this,
but that says a lot too. The fact that but being there for each other. Yeah, all the strength that it's giving. I think it's a really good example of, sometimes you can't really march alone, and you don't have to share everything about yourself to feel the support of someone else next to you. You just need to share that, the sharing of the strength. Yeah. And it's not, I love that she said that, the sharing of the strength. It's not about, meeting in this very victim place of, we're being preyed on. No, it's okay. This is happening, but we'll be okay. And there's a lot of strength in that, even just as a viewer to see that. So that's why I really hope that it's really the kind of film that I hope a younger audience will get their hands on, but I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will.
Didn't even get a Blu-ray release. I still don't understand. Maybe it's just some strange quirk of 2020 where everything had to suffer. But the good thing about it is that it is available. It's out there on VOD. Yeah. It's bound to show up on Netflix or Amazon or something. I can wonder how people will react to it, just stumbling into it. I suppose that's what happened with Secret Movie Club. We just put it in front of people, and a couple of them didn't like it. There were comments from people that it was, it was too.
What did they say?
Oh, well, an older woman walked out at the end of the film. I was waiting to go on to do the Q&A, and just one of the audience members just walked out as the credits were rolling and just said, that was disgusting. And it's like, I didn't even get to ask her why. I would have loved to find out why. Yeah. And maybe it's just because that generation doesn't believe you should talk about these things, which of course is how abortion rights continue to be, oppressed and twisted and withheld, because it's just not something we should talk about. We should simply make it go away. That impulse to not even have movies about it, to not even deal with it. And again, the film isn't about the abortion. It's about the person trying to get one and who she is and what that does. But my back goes right up at that sort of thing. It's like, I don't know how you can, maybe if you walk out the second you hear what the movie's about, maybe, but I don't know how you could watch that film and spend an hour and a half with these characters and then be disgusted. People are weird.
Do you find that, secret movie, it's just, I love that idea of, people watching a film that they just didn't know they would be watching. Did you find over the years that people are they more easily surprised and touched by a movie, or you see that on the contrary, when they really don't like it, they really hate it? It's because it's so easy to, you read about a film and it's sad sometimes, because I feel like some movies are rejected right away because of their theme or subjects, and they would potentially have a great impact on those viewers,
Yeah, I love the idea of luring people into an experience that could potentially change their points of view, but it's a hard sell sometimes. I mean, it's not that people leap out of their seats and run away when we screen something, when we announce the film isn't going to be something they like or that they think they'll like. But we got to screen Minari this year. We got to screen The Courier and I'm Your Woman and
Woman. Which one is that?
Oh, that's Julia Hart's film with Rachel Brosnahan as basically a mob wife in the 70s.
Okay,
but it's not about what it's about in the same way. It's really interesting inversion of genre stuff, and I think the people who buy the tickets expect to be challenged and surprised. They would also enjoy. I mean, they did enjoy it when we had 1917 that time, because that was a big Oscar-y movie that everybody had been hearing about. And there's that thrill too. But I don't think
already an audience that is willing to be surprised and just, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. They generally roll with whatever we give them. And we haven't, I don't think we've screened anything that's truly, like challenging or transgressive or terrifying. This is probably the biggest leap of faith we've taken with our audience, and for the most part they responded really well.
Okay
Well, that's good.
Great.
This is so fresh that it's probably inappropriate to ask, but I usually end the podcast by asking people if they've taken inspiration from the film they've chosen, and if there's anything of Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always that you'll be using in the future, I guess is how I'd apply it. Is there something you want to lift or steal, or
not steal, obviously, but there's something about how Eliza Hittman, I feel like she really lets it happen in front of us. She's not rushing, although we feel that sense of urgency and honesty. I feel like the feelings have room to really bloom and get deeper and deeper, and because it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel over dramatic. It feels, as you said, honest and real. And sometimes when you've been working, as I've been for the past few years, working on TV more, although Cardinal was not that very, the speed of the series was not very fast, but still it's easy to rush through certain emotions. And no, we shouldn't, because that's what as a viewer, that's what I love to see. That's what we're moved by. It's not necessarily the end. And that's so basic for acting and directing and everything. But watching the film, it was a great reminder of, we want to see it happen in front of us. We want to feel it all the way through, and the evolution is sometimes so subtle of a specific emotion that it's really easy to jump a few steps and then really lose the honesty on the way. So to just take my time as an actor, as a storyteller in general, to just get to the honesty and the truth of it. And it doesn't have, and the scope of the story also, to get really close to the characters. And it doesn't have to be this spectacular. And watching the film, actually, I really, I have a great acting coach in LA, Joan Shekel, and she's, when she talks about, the acts of a film, and she's like, we've been telling stories, in movies with a very specific structure in mind. But, just like music, sometimes, it can be, music has so many ways of, taking you away in an emotional journey, and with the speed and the rhythm and everything. And I feel like this specific one, it's very precise, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. but it doesn't have like the usual act 1, act 2. Yes, it has a few acts. I mean, it is a story and we're moving forward, but still I don't know, just to trust that the story has its own rhythm and you don't have to try to box it into something different, and to trust that this rhythm will tell the right story. Yeah.
My thanks to Karine Vanasse, whose latest project, Felix and the Treasure of Morgaa, is now available to rent or buy on digital VOD platforms across North America. She's having a lot of fun in it. Thanks also to Angie Power. She knows what she did. You can find Karine on Twitter at Karine Vanasse, all one word, and you can find Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always on DVD from Universal Studios Home Entertainment. It's also available on Apple TV and Google Play, and streaming on Crave in Canada and HBO Max in the US. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner, and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com, where I'm hosting a bunch of podcasts these days and writing a weekly Now Streaming newsletter, to which you can subscribe at nowtoronto.substack.com. And you can find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you've been enjoying it. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're there. Stay home, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out. I'll see you next time.